Yesterday we looked at the words Goyla, which represents the state of the world as we have it now, the state pre-Mashiach. And we made a comparison to the word Geula, which obviously is the state of the world once Mashiach comes. And we identified that the whole difference between Goyla and Geula is just one letter, just the Alef. That's the whole difference. But that single letter signifies a huge, huge shift, massive shift. Because what that letter signifies, as we learned yesterday, is the difference between having Hashem in the back of my mind, that's Goyla. Hashem is a little bit abstract and removed. And Geula is where the Alef, representing Hashem, Alufoi Shel Olam, the fact that Hashem is in charge of the world, actually enters and becomes apparent to me, that's my reality. That's in fact how I see the world. And it's a radical change because it immediately helps me to be in a calmer headspace. I realize that I'm in good hands. Hashem is running the world, etc., etc. That's what we learned yesterday. Now, today we're going to take it to the next level. The letter Aleph, the way it is spelled, Aleph Lamed Pei, that's how you spell the word Aleph. So that actually means to teach. There's a verse that says, A'alefcha chachma, A'alefcha bina. You can hear the word Aleph in that. A'alefcha, I will teach you chachma, I will teach you wisdom. A'alefcha bina, I will teach you understanding. So this is now a different interpretation of what Aleph means. When we talk about bringing the Aleph into the Goyla in order to create Geula, is of course we're talking about introducing Hashem into the world. Obviously that's what we mean. But when we speak about Hashem, there are different ways that we can speak about Hashem. One way is Aluf Shel Olam. You know what Hashem is? Hashem is the one who is in control of the world, and that will profoundly change our life. In fact, not only will it profoundly change our lives, but it will change everybody's lives. Every year on Rosh Hashanah, one of the prayers that we make is that Hashem, you should give us an opportunity that Mashiach should come. We don't say it in those words, but we say, V'yeda kol pa'ul ki ato fa'altoi, that every single thing that exists should appreciate that Hashem is the one who makes them exist. So that's alufoi shel olam, to recognize what's the greatness of Hashem. The greatness of Hashem is that He is the controller, He's in charge of the world. But now we have another depth of understanding that what does Aleph represent? It represents this concept of teaching. So in Aramaic, we use the expression ulfana. Ulfana means teaching. And as Dubi just put onto the chat, you know, if you go to Israel and you want to learn Hebrew, you go on ulpan. So ulpan comes from the same letters, the same root as Aleph, which means to teach. Now, how's that significant to us? And how's that significant to understanding this transition that will take place between the world as we know it and the world of Mashiach? So to understand that, we have to first look at this. When Hashem created the world, if you go back to the beginning, obviously, we're told, and we say it in the Kiddush on Shabbos, Ki sheishes yomim asa Hashem es hashamayim v'es ha'aretz, because, now the word is not be sheishes. It does not say because in 6 days Hashem created the heavens and the earth, even though that might be how they translate it in English, but it's not what the Hebrew says. Instead, what the Hebrew says is ki, because sheishes yomim asa, 6 days made the world. And based on that, Hasidus explains that those 6 days, the concept of a day, obviously, day is associated with light, and light is associated with that which can be revealed. So if I can't see something, I say I'm in the dark. And if I want to understand something, I say, please enlighten me. So the concept of day, which obviously represents light, is very closely associated with the concept of revelation. So that means if 6 days created the world, that means that there were 6 types of revelation that Hashem used in order for existence to happen. And those 6 dimensions are what we call in the language of Kabbalah and Hasidus, we call those the 6 midos, which means the 6 quote-unquote traits of Hashem that He introduced into the world. Chesed, kindness, gevura, severity, tiferes, harmony, netzach, perseverance, hoid, acceptance, yesod, foundation. So whatever they are, we're not going to go into right now. It's obviously very closely associated with the counting of the Omer, because that's what we focus on during the counting of the Omer, is those things as they reflect in our own personality. But suffice it to say this, if you look at a human being, you can almost split the human being into 3. There is the intellectual human, the emotional human, and the behavioral human. or to put it into different words, intellect, character, and action. So those 6 different dimensions that Hashem injected into the world in order for the world to exist, they fit into the category that is called midos, character or emotion. In a human being, we all know from our own experience that intellect allows us to rise above emotion. What that means is that if I feel a certain way, let's say I'm upset about something, but I know that I shouldn't be upset about it. So I'm upset about the fact that we're in lockdown. Why am I upset? Because I feel that somebody else is imposing on me how I should live my life, and I would prefer to have the freedom to move and so on and so forth. So I can work with myself intellectually and understand, look, these are the facts. This is what the science says. We're trying to flatten the curve. Yeah, I can do a whole exercise that is an intellectual exercise. And once I settle things in my mind intellectually, then I'm able to step outside of what I was feeling. That's called maturity. Okay? So the immature person cannot escape their feelings and they are ruled by their feelings. And a mature person is able to introduce a higher dimension of self, my mind, and I can use my mind to shift my feelings into a completely different space. So if the whole world was created using traits that we call so-called emotion, then if we talk about Alef as learning, we're effectively talking about introducing into the world not just the fact that Alufoi Shel Olam, that Hashem is in control of the world, that he pulls those strings, that Hashem has designed those 6 different channels of energy and he manages them so that at certain times there's more chesed in the world and at other times there's more gevura in the world. And he is making those decisions. And I don't have a say in it, so I should recognize that I'm in good hands. That's level 1 of the Aleph. Right now, perhaps the world is in a more gevura space. Everybody's more restricted. That's a sign of gevura. We're unable to move freely. That's a sign of gevura. The economy is under stress. That's a sign of gevura. So right now, Hashem is using the channel of gevura as the primary channel in the world. But I'm okay with that because I know Alufoi Shel Olam. Hashem is the one who's controlling it. And I submit and I go with that flow. The second experience of Aleph says something completely different. I don't have to be defined by the world as it is. There's an opportunity to bring into the world a dimension of godliness that is way beyond how the world is designed to behave. Again, like a human being. If I bring my mind into the picture, I can use my mind to shift my emotions so that either I don't have to succumb to, I'm not ruled by my emotions, or I'm able to totally, radically change my emotions. So let's say, for example, the person who maybe was really upset at somebody, maybe somebody had a faribel, and it's lingered for a long time. So the emotion is very entrenched, and it's an emotion of upset and of distance. I can use my seichel to change myself, to become accepting of that person, and reconnect to that person, and eventually even get to a point to like that person, as far-fetched as that sounds. That's the power of the mind. The power of the mind is so profound that it can recalibrate and redefine everything about the experience that I had in the heart, in the emotional state. So by the same token, when we talk about Geula, that the coming of Mashiach is that the Aleph is introduced into the world, it's not just that we'll have this awareness and this awakening, oh my gosh, Hashem is in control, everything is in his hands, and therefore it's all good. But we'll actually get to understand that there is a far deeper dimension of Hashem that is not abstract, that is not far-fetched. That deeper dimension of Hashem will also become revealed to us. In other words, to see Hashem as the creator and master of the world totally uplifts our lives. But can you imagine then that we're able to, so to speak, see the thinking behind it, the intellect behind it, why Hashem does those things, why Hashem, you know, as the prophet says, Yeshaya says, we read it on the last day of Pesach in the Haftarah, Oidcha Hashem ki anaftobi. I actually thank you, Hashem, for the things that you did that were painful to me at the time, because now I understand why you did it. And that's the power of the intellect. When I understand, when I have context, when I see perspective, then it not only allows me to change, but it redefines my whole experience of everything until now. Now, how do we get that? Because if you want to bring a dimension of godliness into your life, you have to exercise in that fashion. Like we said yesterday, if you want Shabbos to be good, you have to cook before Shabbos. So if you want the Alufay Shel Olam, you want to see Master of the Universe in your own life, if you want to see that in the world, you've got to start in your own life. How do you start in your own life? That's what we said yesterday. That even if you do ordinary things, you have to infuse those ordinary things with a sense of godliness. That there's purpose. I eat in order to have strength, in order to do mitzvahs. I do business in order to make money, in order to give tzedakah, or to be able to have a good Shabbos table, or buy a beautiful esrog, or whatever the case is. So that's the first level. But the second level is Alef chochma. You want to experience a revelation of Hashem in your life, not just of how Hashem runs the world, but a revelation of Hashem much higher than just running the world, so to speak, to understand the plan, the insight, because that's what's going to happen when Mashiach comes. We'll see the whole tapestry. We'll understand why things happened and how they happened, and who were the people who were the kingpins of each segment of that development. And we'll look with wonder. It will be this massive aha moment to say, now it all falls into place, and now it all makes sense, and now it's all so spectacular. So if you want to achieve that, you have to prepare for that in your own life. How do you prepare in your own life? So we said, through teaching. In other words, not only am I supposed to find a way to serve Hashem in everything that I do, a big part of what I have to do as a Jewish person is dedicate time to trying to understand Hashem. Now, we know that we can't understand Hashem. It's not possible. But we are required to learn. That we are required to do. Because it's a cop-out for a person to say the subject matter is too advanced or too deep or too expansive for me to understand. Nobody ever said you have to get 10 out of 10. This is not a competition, and there's no certificate at the end. But what you do have to do, what is a requirement, is to learn as much as you can. So how do we prepare ourselves for the second wave, the second depth, the second dimension of the Alef, to reveal not just Hashem in the world, but Hashem's plan in the world in a clear, obvious way that is so fulfilling? How? By learning as much as we can now of what He's already told us. In other words, when we learn Torah, that prepares us for the second level of the Aleph of Geula. The third level, please God, we will do tomorrow.